So my little nugget came about 8 weeks ago. It's been a bit. And I was going to share this earlier, but I really needed time to heal and recover and just feel like a semblance of myself again. Because it was a rough one. It really was so rough. Stretched me in so many ways. But this really hard season has reminded me of a few things. It reminded me that perseverance is not about pushing harder. It is about being anchored in your faith, in your values, and what matters most to your family. Because when you are clear on those things, the hard seasons feel different. So here's my story. So it was a ride. This is my 5th pregnancy, my 5th baby, my 6th kid. But it was completely different from all the other ones, and it threw me off. So with my other 4 pregnancies, my body followed, I've got notes, I don't forget, but my body followed a predictable pattern. They were all pretty easy pregnancies. I ran a half marathon pregnant with one. And then I'd get about prodromal labor for about a week before birth, which is where you have contractions consistently and regularly, but it's not quite labor. I would dilate pretty early. I bathed about 3 centimeters for about a week before baby came, and my last baby, it took him an hour to come out. So because of that, I planned to have a home birth. I recover better at home. I like it when people can come to me. Then I could let my body go into labor naturally, not have to rush to get to the hospital. So around 37 weeks this time, I got hit in the belly. And I had an anterior placenta, which anybody knows you get hit in the belly and you're supposed to go get checked. And so I went in to the midwife's office and they checked me. Everything looked good. We tested for amniotic fluid and it tested positive. So they sent me to the hospital to get monitored. So they tested me a couple times for amniotic fluid and then sent me home. Everything looked good. But that's when the prodromal labor started. Usually it doesn't start till 39 weeks. It started at 37. So I thought he was coming early. But then I was having strong and exhausting contractions for hours and hours and hours. It left me so depleted. I couldn't focus on working. I couldn't focus on making videos. I was struggling to clean the house. I was trying to cook, clean, read, or sleep. Nothing of it. Couldn't do any of it. I just laid miserably, staring off into space. And at first it was really hopeful. I just told myself, hang on, only 1 week of this, and then it gets better. And then 1 week drug into 3. I started to feel really useless. I was worried about the baby. Is something wrong? That he can't come out? I was anxious and discouraged, and I had to remind myself that exhaustion is not failure. But then my due date came, and I kept telling myself, my babies have never gone past the due date. So I planned a nice, peaceful day with lots of oxytocin, snuggles with my babies. So labor would come, and nothing happened. And then the next day was Sunday, so I stayed home from church. I was having contractions. Anyways, I was in pain. I watched The Chosen, and I prayed. I was just asking God to let me know that he cared, that he was there. And you know what? A really sweet friend from church asked my husband if they could bring dinner, and they did, and it was just what I needed. It was like a little tender mercy that just made my life so much easier. So then, that was Sunday. Tuesday was my next appointment, and I really didn't want to go. But so that night, I started to be crampy, and so I went out to the couch like I always do, and was not very hopeful, and fell asleep leaning over on top of pillows. But I started feeling crampy. My husband was getting stronger when he got up to go to the gym, and I just told him to be fast, stay close to his phone. And so he decided to stay home. I watched it for a little bit before I was finally like, okay, yep, I'm in labor. And I got pretty strong pretty fast. And so we called the midwives. They got there. I'm a pretty quiet, introspective person, so I was not very vocal. And they just kind of were there checking on the baby and me frequently. After a while, I have no idea the time period, my water finally broke. And with my other births, that meant like they're coming within minutes. That didn't happen this time. But the contractions came back to back. So I got into the birthing tub, which was heaven. Highly recommend it with labor. I got a little bit of time to rest, and they picked back up, and I got hit hard with exhaustion, and I was so frustrated. My body was not following its normal pattern, guys. It was not following its normal pattern. So at one point, I just thought, like, if I was at the hospital, I'd just say, take him out now. But that's when I realized there's a difference. But there's like a really fine line between powering through something and just giving up. Because I was ready to give up. And finally, I was praying and I was like, God, I cannot do this anymore. I don't even want to I'm so tired. I don't even know what's going on. Because the contractions were coming back to back. And I couldn't feel if I needed to push or not. They were on top of each other. And it was so painful. And I got this thought that said, softly push. Just soft. It was just a little voice in my head. So I knew that was God trying to help me through it. Because my body was not giving me my normal cues. So I started to softly push. Nothing hard, just like little soft pushes. And after a while, that was getting exhausting too. And my contractions regulated themselves after that, which was so lucky. It was such a blessing. And then, so I started, as I could feel my contractions more, I was able to push a little bit more and a little bit better. And that was good. And then I was getting discouraged again. And again, like the thought came, like, feel if he's there. And so I did. I like felt up in there. And I could feel his head about halfway through the birth canal. And the hope and the relief and the like surge of adrenaline that gave me was amazing. And I was able to push. So, and then I started to like seriously push. And his head came out. You know, Ring of Fire is not fun. I've never really felt it that much before. And it actually took a couple pushes to get his head out. And normally my other babies, the head comes out and the body just like out. His didn't. I had to actually push his dang body out. But after a while, he was out. And I got to hold him to my chest. And the relief and that feeling of peace that comes from that, it was amazing. Yes. So he came out. He's huge. I won't show my babies on here, but he's a monster baby compared to my other ones. He's 8 pounds, 10 ounces, and he's got a giant head. My other ones were 7 pounds for reference, and I'm only 5 feet tall. So that's a big baby inside of me. And then he had the cord wrap around himself a couple times. We were so lucky that everything turned out the way that it did. But I wanted to share all of it, all of like the hard parts, because sometimes life feels hopeless. It's hard and it's overwhelming, and motherhood is so hard, and it will stretch you in ways that you don't ever expect. But when you're clear on your values, you're anchored in your faith, and you know what matters most to you, you don't crumble when it gets hard. Motherhood, in money, in birth, in anything in life, if you have clarity on what matters most, you don't give up, and you get to move through it differently, depending on your circumstances.